Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. And of course, you good old boys from Africa. You know we love the Big C tribe. We love you in Canada, but I'm so sorry. You guys are checking out of all the sports, but there's no one we love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C on a beautiful May 21st, 2018. How's it going for you good old boys down south, Big C?
Well, Charlton, there's a mystery that's been going on. I think a conspiracy, more or less. I mean, we've had two legs of the Triple Crown run this year.
Yeah.
Okay, and everybody knows to have a big fire, you got to have dry conditions. Okay?
Yes.
And so I'm a little perturbed with this rain that's going on, you know, at the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't get the barbecue going. Now, you notice they only had 6 horses running last time because they knew those laying back in the weeds wasn't going to make it across.
That's funny.
But they put my fire out with all this fake rain that's going on.
Yeah, you and Donald Trump even calling it fake rain. I tell you, so much going on in the world of the sports universe, kind of a smorgasbord of sports and entertainment. You know, we love basketball, and we'll get into that. We saw Golden State, the land of vibranium versus the land of oil, and I think vibranium trumped the oil, Big C. And then Cleveland, they're going at it again tonight with Boston. There's something about LeBron James. It's amazing when one player can take over a game. We know baseball's having this go around. But I know that Canada, you know, they decided they didn't want to play anymore on ice, Big C. They wanted to go watch the playoffs. So again, Winnipeg, great run, but Las Vegas decided to get it done. I do want to say that this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, I know we talk about the Preakness. We talk about so many things that happen in sports, but I want to start with 2 things. I know we just had the royal wedding over the weekend, and they had the nerve to get up early in the morning. You know, I kind of slept in, Big C. They didn't tell me it's on sleepy. I showed up on CP time to watch the royal wedding. Did you catch it, Big C, or did you also show up on CP time, Big C?
Charlton, what a spectacular event, you know, to have this royal wedding that went on. I mean, the royals do it big time, you know, when they put on a ceremony, Charlton.
Yeah.
I mean, just spectacular. And, you know, I love Prince Harry. You know, especially when he got out at the chapel, where he had this strut. I mean, he had a little thugness in him and stuff. You know, strolling up the steps, you know, rocking to the side. And that jacket that he had on was straight out of some of the great groups that we saw in the 60s and 70s, African-American groups that we saw on stage with their coordination and everything, the lapels and ruffles that he had on the front. I mean, we'll see it on some storefronts this week, Charlton.
Yes.
You know, just a spectacular event for Prince Harry and his lovely bride, Meghan Markle, Charlton.
Yes.
To have dignitaries and people from all over the world wanting to attend this glamorous event, Charlton. And the royals, they put it on right.
Yeah, I think when you contrast the society, the British society, Great Britain, of course they've been around longer than the United States, so they've had a chance to go some of the growing pains that we've had as a country in the United States of America. But I think that when you brought that up, that people from all over the world went, is that society. And he does have a little bit of some smoothness, and he got a little bit of curl in that hair. He has some curl in that hair. I was noticing, Big C. Some of those others got a little straighter hair, Big C, but maybe that's the style that he gel that he puts in it. But I thought we saw people like Oprah. You know, Oprah worldwide is recognized all over the universe. Oprah is recognized. And when they saw, I think Serena Williams was there. She was there looking beautiful. And just a lot of dignitaries, as you mentioned. I love the way that Don Lemon looked showing up for CNN, and they had their stage, and they were there out in the open. They were not in the studio. And a lot of the reporters, I want to get your thoughts on why it's so important to embrace it, and what would it take for, say, African Americans or even any ethnic group in the United States to have that look, because let's keep it real. You know, she does consider to how scientists looks at people. She's African American or biracial, however they want to call that, with a biracial mother. But what would it take to have that type of respect for Black Americans when they tie the knot or jump the broom? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they did at one point. When you go back to the early Black history in America, that's how they celebrated. You know, it was a community affair, Charlton, where everybody got involved.
Yeah.
But for some reason, you know, they've lost their step as far as what they have socially. And, you know, when you look at the disbandment of the minority families in America, Charlton, that's one of the things, because we don't see weddings on an elaborate stage like we saw this past weekend, Charlton.
Yeah.
It used to be that you had all sides of the family, Charlton, generations. You know, it was a ceremony called jumping the broom.
Yeah.
Where you brought an entire community together, Charlton, that it was a special time, not just for that couple, but for both families, Charlton.
Yeah.
You saw an extension of generations. And that's what you see in the Royals. You see an extension of generations. But what they have done, Charlton, by maintaining the monarchy in Europe, is that people look forward to these special occasions.
Yes.
Not that Harry will ever ascend to the throne, Charlton, but it's just a legacy that was built by his mother that he has carried on.
Yes.
That make people want to be a part of his life, Charlton. And that's in any culture.
Yeah.
When you do things the proper way, people have a tendency to follow you, Charlton.
Yes.
When we look in America and we look trying to find leadership, even from a family perspective, Charlton.
Yes.
You know, you don't have a signature family in America that everybody wants to follow. But when something glamorous happens, like a wedding or something ceremoniously like that.
Yes.
We've gotten to the point of a society in America that we're so me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference whether it's in social life, whether it's in sports, whether it's in politics. It's me. We're not looking at the masses when we try to accomplish something here. This is a country that embraced the world and invited the world in to this glorious event.
I tell you what, when I look at how the dignity of Harry and how they've done so many things across the world, and let's keep in mind now, in that society, there was a time when I know Princess Diana, she got some pushback because how we look at bloodlines. I guess they didn't Google that all life began in Africa, but when Dodi Al-Fayed was looking at, I guess he was courting Princess Diana, and she had lamented that she thought that the higher ups, I guess the Whig society or the oligarchy of England, would end her life, because there's some people who don't see like embracing that type of culture where you open up to be egalitarian. And in the United States, they just say, oh, someone's racist or someone can't marry in, or we know that we had those anti-miscegenation laws in the United States of America. So I look at think of what Prince Harry did for young kids who know what racism is, especially down south. They know what the Tuskegee Institute did in the United States, where 400 black men were injected with syphilis by the United States government. You can Google it. And they were allowed to cohabit with anyone they wanted to, mainly their wives. Those are black men experimented with by the government. Tuskegee Airmen, they served the country, but they still got treated very horribly. So when you see Harry not having that standoffish racism, that pseudo-racism thing that Donald Trump has in his administration, does that give young black Americans and even young white people hope that across the pond that there is civility, and this new type of this pseudo-racism that we have that's so quietly at times, do they realize that we can reach that here too, where we won't have this such a separation? I hope that makes sense, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, cultural diversity, Charlton, across the water has been there for a long time.
Yeah.
Interracial relationships have never been frowned upon. You know, that's a U.S. thing. I mean, when we look at it, you know, the separation of culture, society, races, America has worked really hard at doing that. You know, when people look around the world and they say, you know, they try to think of the wrongs that other countries have done.
Yes.
And you know, they'll always bring up the Nazis during World War II with the genocide.
Yes.
The original genocide was created here in America.
Yeah.
When you think about those Europeans that came here and the genocide that they did to the Native Americans that were here. They didn't leave on their own. They didn't disappear on it. That was genocide. You tried to wipe out an entire race of people.
Yeah.
And it has continued on, Charlton, even through slavery. There was genocide in slavery. When you think about the number of slaves that were taken from Africa versus the number that arrived in the United States, that was basically a genocide that had taken place. And then after you had them here in freedom, Charlton, you still killed them at record numbers. And so that genocide it continuously increased. We can learn a lot from the European mentality.
I agree.
Is that you don't have to run over other cultures to be successful. Is that be acceptance of people and allow people to develop.
Yes.
And not stereotype people.
Yeah.
Because we have so much stereotypes. And when I think about stereotype, Charlton, and I want to send my condolences, and it shouldn't be sent out, but we have to send them out. To the school children in Texas, Charlton, Santa Fe, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Where we had the 23rd school shooting of the year, Charlton. And this is something when we look at disenfranchised white males.
Yeah.
Go back and look at all the school shootings, Charlton. They come from disenfranchised white males. You think about it, in the last month in America, look how many African Americans have been arrested for falling asleep in the school dorm,
Isn't that something?
in the television room. Arrested at Starbucks for just sitting in the store.
Yeah.
Arrested at Waffle Houses for just sitting there in the restaurant. Arrested at a Airbnb.
Yeah.
For leaving after your rent time was up.
Yeah.
Think about this. White Americans do not call the police on disenfranchised white males. When you see a white male walking around in a trench coat and it's 90 degrees outside, if you see something, say something. Call the police. Say, this is not normal.
Yeah.
You know, but you won't do that. You know, you'll call the police on African Americans barbecuing in their front yard.
Yeah.
But you won't call the police on a disenfranchised white male walking around with a trench coat. The first time that happened was Columbine.
Yeah.
These white males walking around in trench coats so they can easily walk into a school with firearms. This just happened in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Yeah.
Texas.
Yes.
He walks into a school. He has a trench coat on. It's 90-degree weather. Think about it. In social media, everybody is seeing stuff on social media nowadays.
Yeah.
When you see a white male with a T-shirt on saying, born to kill, looking to kill, I want to kill, you should alert somebody that this may be his modus operandi, what he's thinking about doing.
Yes.
But you don't. You look at it as funny. Then all of a sudden he goes into a school and 10 people lose their lives. And you saw this. It is just like he said. I didn't shoot my friends because I wanted them to tell my story. What he admitted to, Charlton, is that his friends knew what he was going to do.
They sure did.
They were aware of his thoughts and what he was putting on his social page.
Yeah.
I look at the situation at the Pulse nightclub down in Orlando. Okay?
Yeah.
They arrested this guy's wife, put her on trial as an accessory, saying she should have knew. Okay? I haven't seen one white parent arrested from any school shooting that has gone on. And this kid here walked into the school with his dad's 2 guns. Okay? His dad should have knew what was going to go on because he walked out of there with his revolver and his shotgun. But they do not arrest white parents when their children commit these heinous crimes because they're saying, well, it must be a mental issue. The parent didn't see any signs. The parent couldn't have known, but they arrested the wife of the Pulse nightclub shooter, put her on trial for an accessory to this crime.
Yeah.
Even though she said she knew nothing about it.
Wow.
But they said that she should have, but they're saying that the white parents don't know what their children are doing that are living in their house using their firearms to go murder other American citizens.
And ironically, I watched a lot of news, and again, our I mean, all you can say is our hearts and prayers go out to the victims and their families. And Trump has not come across the airwaves and said what he said about the Mexican that came to the United States, I think in San Francisco, and he tragically ended the life of one European. He never called white people rapists and murderers. And he's yet to make that statement. But this gentleman killed 10 people and injured 10 more, or even more than that. And then imagine the psychological abuse. And that's the same profile of the gentleman, not even the gentleman, the terrorist down in Florida. But not one of them was labeled as a rapist or a murderer to say that whole society has issues. But he did that to one Mexican that came here, and he called them illegal. So that wall that he wants to build, would it have stopped this massacre down in Texas, this terrorist attack? No. This wall that he wants to build, would it have stopped this terrorist attack down in Florida? No. So I just want to draw that again, because we know sports brings people together, and so does politics for smart people. If you're just dumb and want to watch the score, go find another station. But I want to ask this question for all the people who went across the pond to see this wedding. There was a time in the United States of America where we had anti-miscegenation laws on the books. For you good old boys, that means you couldn't marry anyone who's not your same ethnic group. And we know that was in the United States of America. So there's a time where the law was eradicated and abolished, but the heart didn't change.
As recent as the 60s, Charles.
In the 60s. The civil rights movement.
50 years ago in America.
Yeah.
You could not do that in several states.
But the heart did not change. You can't legislate someone's heart. And so the reason I wanted to paint that story this way, as we cover sports and we cover everything, but we have a lot of people in our society that spend a lot of time getting on airplanes to fly across the pond to watch a royal wedding. And I'm not saying they can't do it, but there's so much garbage that happens in the United States of America. And I just wonder if we had maybe a society where it valued all people and we didn't have these different divisions of hatred, that we wouldn't have to cover school shootings. I'm sure they have their own crime all over the world. But our country is we have so much potential. And I know for people who are more interested in just the score of a game, how can we make sure that when our kids go to school, that they can have reference, that when a young girl grows up or boy grows up, black or white, that they can feel like the way the British treat their royalty. And I know we have this issue in the White House. I want to ask people, how do you rank Donald Trump and his mentality versus Prince Harry and their egalitarianism, their implicit and also their tacit discrimination? Harry's not a bigot. No one in the world can say that he is. Donald Trump is a bigot. You can Google the Central Park Five for you dumb people that don't know that. And I want to ask you, if we showed more reverence for people, we would have probably a better society for all Americans. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I look at it from this perspective. We had no representation from the White House at this wedding.
Sure didn't.
You think about that. We had no representation from our national leadership at this wedding of England. You know, and they are a partner of ours in the political realm, Charlton.
Yeah.
In the social world realm. They're one of our allies. But we had no representation. That meant there was no respect from our country's leadership given back to the Queen of England and her family, Charlton.
I just noticed
or
that.
Or even the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
You know, so when we look at how our country is, it speaks volume from that alone. You know, we had representation when his brother was wed, okay?
Yeah.
We had representation from the White House. And so to say that we don't have the ability to send a dignitary there, Charlton,
yes,
high up, vice president or someone of that nature, Charlton,
yeah,
we don't do that. So we don't respect our allies. And so when we look at how leadership is rolled down in this country, Charlton, it's looking at everybody being less than what our leadership is, Charlton.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're spending more time deflecting than reflecting here.
Yep.
So you can't expect us to have unity when a third of our country thinks like our leadership in this country, Charlton.
Yeah.
Is that it's separate. Regardless of what you do negative, is still a plus.
Well, I think I love the fact that the world, I mean, sometimes what you do is more important than what you say. So when you see what's called, I mean, there's only one race, the human race, but for people who just make decisions, knee-jerk reactions on what they see when you're going to buy a home, it says what color, black, white, or other, or Hispanic, or Native American. Would you good old boys know that if you mark other, they consider you white on an application? So if you mark other or white, you're more likely to get approved on a loan. A lot of people don't know that. You can Google it, okay? It's designed that way. It's not that they work harder. It's not that they have better credit, but they check white on a loan application, or they check other, and the banks are more likely to approve you through their loan matrix. I've been in lending for many years, and it's an unknown fact that's still there. And just to prove that, even Stanford University did some studies on that. They took white people, had to mark other, or they had to mark black or a different color on their loan application. They got denied. They marked white, they got approved. They took some black Americans that marked other on their loan application because you can prove that you do have some other blood in your system, and they got the loan. That's for everybody trying to get a loan, okay? Other means white, and white has always been approved more in the United States banking system. But I want to tie one more thing into this thing that's happened in England. When I look at young African Americans and people of color that have their own issues, and I look at the reverence given to that wedding, I know not one black American that I've ever met had more reverence for the Queen of England than they do for their own mother, our grandparents. And I appreciate that society because it shows the hierarchy of respect that I hope is still there for our young people. I'm sure it still is for most people, but we just don't see it on TV where we show a lot of respect for our elders. And you know, we were not joking, Big C, when we said that we hope that we can get a National Grandparents' Day for all of the work that grandparents do for children all over the world, especially in the United States. And so Big C Sports wants to petition that and ask that to get at least a conversation started, National Grandparents' Day. I want to close on this story in England one more time and contrast that with the United States, Big C. And I hope that if we look at how we can cut down on violence in the United States of America, I'm not saying that England's perfect, but there is a hierarchy of respect. And I hope that we can bring that back from the top down, where the leadership respects even the common person, and they don't tell you to go out and beat the hell out of people if they make noise at your political rally. I just think people look at the class of Prince Harry and also Donald Trump, and which one would be a better example for the world to follow. You know, there's someone that looks a lot like you, Big C. He may not be as chiseled as you. He may not be as tall as you. He may not be as muscular, but his name is Van Jones. And he's doing something on CNN, and he actually met with the White House, a White House team, and they are actually discussing what Donald Trump called Colin Kaepernick and all the other black athletes in the NFL SOBs. Think about this. He called SOBs the guys who want to ask for, you know, social reform, social justice reform. Now he's actually meeting about 2 years later with Van Jones, or at least a team of people at the White House are meeting with something that he called them SOBs for doing. So has he made a change of heart, or is he just politicking, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, you know, Donald Trump will never have a change of heart. You know, you think about this last school shooting. What has he come out and done in a political stance, Charlton?
Has
he come out and said anti-guns, no more violence? He keeps saying we have to find a way to keep our children safe in school.
Yeah.
You are the number one person that you signed all of these executive orders.
Sure did.
To abolish all these things that President Obama put into place. That's your legacy right now, dismantling President Obama's legacy.
Yep.
You want to talk about protecting the children in school? You have that Sharpie all the time with you.
Yep.
You have someone who can type for you because evidently you can't. Have them type up an executive order on gun control. Period. You talk about banning bunt stocks. Okay, there was no bunt stock on this .38 revolver. There was no bunt stock on this shotgun that he was carrying, Charlton.
No.
There was a bunt stock used in one incident. That was Las Vegas, okay? A bunt stock in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Meaningless, and I'm not discounting the loss of life.
No, not at all.
But I'm talking about meaningless in the total 23 school shootings that we've had.
Yeah.
There's been no bunt stocks used in any school shooting. But you said, okay, we're going to put a ban on bump stocks.
Yeah.
You said nothing about any type of weapon. You didn't ban the AR-15. You didn't talk about one entry in the schools. You don't talk about metal detectors. Think about the largest American terrorist act that we've ever had, Charlton, 9/11.
Yeah.
What did America do after 9/11 to protect its citizens? Because evidently children are not citizens yet as far as the lack of protection that they get in America.
Yeah.
Is that all of a sudden to fly, you had to go through a metal detector.
Yep.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
You had to take off certain articles of clothing. You had to take off shoes. Your bag had to be scanned. You know, the first thing that people say, well, the cost factor.
Yeah.
It's going to cost too much. And I'll go back to one of the young ladies who testified at Larry Nassar Senate. You know, the creature from Michigan State that alleged he was a doctor.
Yeah.
Is that what is the value of a little girl's life? How many children and adults have we lost in school shootings this year alone in America?
And still no gun
What
control
is the
bill.
value? What is the value of our future? That's the question that our politicians need to ask.
Yeah.
And I'll tell everybody this. Voting starts tomorrow in America on these midterms.
Yep.
They're going to start voting, you know, here starting tomorrow and across the rest of the country through June.
Yeah.
In these midterms. You want to find out what the value of American life is? Get your butt up off your seat. Get off your couch. Get away from your dinner table. Get out of the restaurant. Find a polling booth. Go vote. If you're concerned about the value of our children in America, you're concerned about the politicians that don't care, don't let them stay in office.
That's true.
Vote them out.
Yeah.
You know, vote them out. That's all you have to do. Since they can't come to a consortium on how to manage America, you think about it. They could get together to abolish Obamacare.
Yeah.
So that you don't have health care.
Yep.
They could get together, give you a tax break. They gave the average American extra $1,000 a year. Wow. Is that $1,000 worth more than a child's life?
No.
Think about that. Vote those buttholes out of office. Get some people in that care about your children. Look at what someone's stance is when they're running for office. See what they are politically.
Yeah.
What are they going to push? But when you sit there and you see somebody backed by the NRA, right off the back, you know they don't care about your child's life.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you're a hunter or not, they don't care about your child's life.
Well, I would hope that in all that happened with this beautiful event that happened in England, and we juxtapose that to the tragedy that happened down in Texas, and I hope that people can say to the next politician, and I want to even say for us, instead of saying our thoughts and prayers are with you, how about saying we have gun control legislation and the president's going to sign it or nobody goes home for the weekend? I mean, that's more important than thoughts and prayers, because if we don't hold them accountable, if these were Mexican Americans, or as Trump calls illegals, going around murdering white kids in the high schools, you better believe they would have all type of legislation.
If there were any culture other than a white American, now think about it. These kids look like little Jimmy next door, Uncle Bob from across town. That's what they look like.
Yeah.
And so because they look like you, you don't want to tell them. You don't want to cause a problem.
Yeah.
But you'll call the police on an African-American student sleeping in the dorm. You'll call the police on African-Americans working out in a gym when they have a membership. You call police on African-Americans sitting in Starbucks waiting on that third member of that party to show up. You'll call the police on African-Americans leaving an Airbnb after their stay is up. You'll call the police on African-Americans barbecuing in their yard because you don't like the amount of people that are there, Charlie. You'll call the police on African-Americans eating in a Waffle House because they look suspicious because they have a tuxedo on.
Yeah.
So, but you won't call the police on a white American walking around with a trench coat on in 90-degree weather and got across his back of his coat saying, "Born to kill." That's normal?
No, it's not. And you know, it's the horrible thing about that as I'm sure the president is going to announce gun control for the whole world to hear. He's not going to offer thoughts and prayers. I'm sure Donald Trump's going to offer gun control, and I hope I'm right about that, and I hope that happens. So for everybody out there, we contrast England, we contrast what would it take for Americans to have reverence for our own country, whether people get married here or whether we socially interact here, where we have a president that has such vitriol in office, and we didn't see that at this beautiful royal wedding. Now, the next thing I want to get on to, Big C, again, congratulations, a beautiful ceremony. A lot of people really enjoyed that. I hope that our own children in the United States can look forward to being treated that well. Something that I saw that you may not appreciate, Big C, because you kind of like the old school, but I'm sure you did. They had the Billboard Music Awards over the weekend, and I realized that Salt-N-Pepa, they're such beautiful women, and the way they entertain, I still appreciated that. And seeing Bruno Mars and a lot of good old boys that were singing. I was hoping that Josh Groban would show up and sing When You Say You Love Me, but he didn't show up. He could have sang that When You Love Vibranium. He could have sang all those kind of songs. But what I really like, Big C, is Janet Jackson, and how, you know, she's been through her own challenges, being a person that grew up famous as one of the younger siblings of the talented Jackson 5, the iconic family of music all over the world, from Jermaine to Tito to Marlon to Michael and Janet, and then there's I think they had a Ruby Jackson as well, Big C, but they had so much success in that family, and then Randy Jackson. But Janet Jackson has been, I guess, the one with the most success outside of Michael, that people have sold out concerts to see. She had a concert recently over the past year, but that she won an award, and she's been through her own battles in relationships, but she said that same statement that we talk about on every Big C sports show. No more excuse for domestic violence, no excuse for sexual assault, and there's some women who choose to marry men that beat them down emotionally, tell them that they are nothing, they're never going to be nothing. They say whatever they want to say, but they get abused mentally without laying a hand on them. But I want to get your thoughts on something that she said, Big C. How wealthy you are does not immune you from abuse. And I want young girls to understand that as they look up to icons at times, because we really got to protect young girls, especially if you have a daughter. Just because you're wealthy, it doesn't immune you from marrying people who are Neanderthal if you let them. But there's one thing that every crook despises, and that's 911. They're going to tell you, baby, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I had a bad day. You know, it's the way you spoke to me. You know, you should have spoke to me by saying Mr. first. Or, you challenged me. You did something to me. Just call 911 and let them explain it to the police. That'll stop the abuse. I want to get your thoughts on how strong she is and her message that Oprah already talked about, that we've been saying for 2 years, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, so many women have gotten into marriages because they're arranged marriages, because families want to keep a certain bloodline, as they call blue bloods, together, to keep money together. So they want their daughters to marry into a certain life, but they don't understand
might be
that abuse follows in these situations also, Charlton.
Yep.
And even when it does come about, Charlton, they say, well, you have to stay in this situation. You can't become an embarrassment.
Get out.
They would rather have their daughter abused than embarrassing them as far as this marriage not working.
Yep.
That they spent all this time arranging and money. But, you know, they do not value that individual, their own flesh and blood, Charlton. We've seen that so often in society around the world.
Yeah.
That women are not valued. And especially when it comes to money.
Yeah.
Because you're second tier. I mean, you look at the White House. It's the leader in that. We have a president that's on his third wife. And his first wife charged him with rape during their divorce.
Google it.
So that lets you know, and you can Google that she charged him with rape while they were being divorced.
Yeah.
And so he has not valued women, Charlton.
No.
You know, the first lady now was in the hospital for a week for an alleged kidney scenario. You don't spend a week in the hospital with a kidney transplant, Charlton. Okay?
Nope.
If you have you can Google that. If you have a kidney transplant, you don't spend a week in the hospital. So this, minor kidney procedure, I question what that was, Charlton.
Well,
but that's all they're going to say. But abuse in America, in wealthy families, has always been very prominent, Charles. But people look at it from a financial perspective.
Yeah.
I can't do this good anywhere else, so I got to take this.
That's very, very powerful. And I'll say this too, how they had the Billboard Awards and Janet Jackson got that standing ovation by so many people, because women know, when you're with a man that's whooping your butt, when you're with somebody who's beating you down, whether it's physically or verbally, that. And so for these fathers out here in this country, that most dads at least want to protect their daughters and sons too, but especially your daughter. And if your daughter ever tells you that, Dad, this guy's beating on me, and you say, yeah, but he's going to save me money in taxes, honey. You say, Dad, this guy sexually assaulted me. You say, yeah, but it's just locker room talk, honey. You say, Dad, this guy is saying things and attacking me and doing things. When I press charges, he says I'm a liar. Okay, Stormy Daniels, you're not lying, and we know that now. You got to stand up for yourself. But for all the men all over this country that defend that stuff in the White House, contrast that to Harry this weekend. When your daughter comes to you and says that some boys put his hand on her, remember, you defended a man that did the same thing, and you still voted for him anyway. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and you need Ben Insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or even your mom and pop soccer leagues, when you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. Big C, I know we talk about our brethren in Canada, and I gotta wait for the CFL to start so I can sing, "Oh, Canada," but they don't have CFL teams in the United States anymore. They used to about 15, 20 years ago. But I want to get your thoughts. Number one, congratulations, Winnipeg. You had a meteoric rise, but you lost to a team that did not even exist 1 year ago in Las Vegas. What a great story, where they did not have to build this franchise from the bottom up. They just kind of married into the family like the Royal Society, in a sense. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you talk about the most enlightening story probably in sports history, the Las Vegas Golden Knights. This is a team that's potentially 4 wins away from winning the most coveted trophy in all professional sports.
Yeah.
The Stanley Cup, Charlton. And being in their inaugural season and what they've done, they've won already.
Yeah.
They just haven't taken home the big prize, but they've won already. They've raised the eyebrows of every professional league in America.
Yeah.
To show them you can never do this again. You can never put a team together like this again.
Yeah.
That can win the championship in their inaugural season. There's nowhere to go after that. But if they do, Charlton, think about how it changes the history of sports.
Yeah.
That over all the decades, you think about some franchises that have been around forever. I mean, it's been forever since the Toronto Maple Leafs have won, Charlton.
Yeah.
You think about the hollow franchise like the Rangers and the Boston, Montreal, Chicago, Detroit, who've had a long lineage of winning, Charlton. But all of a sudden, this fledgling franchise comes into the league and just runs roughshod through this established league, Charlton.
Yeah.
And has potential to win the Stanley Cup in a little more than a week.
Yeah.
If they get on the hot streak. What does that tell Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the NHL, who was at one time David Stern's assistant commissioner in the NBA?
Yeah.
You noted Adam Silver, if they ever have expansion, they don't need expansion in the NBA again. They need contrition. They need to take a couple teams away.
Cut it down,
but
yeah.
This really serves notice on all professional leagues of how a professional franchise should be run.
Yeah, I think about you look at the general manager in George McPhee. He's built the championship team. This is a meteoric rise. There was a time when everyone said that Vegas did not need professional sports because of the betting angle. And you think about the Supreme Court, they estimate 150 billion a year in legal sports gambling in that industry. Illegal. Okay, that means you can't do it. 150 billion with a B. And that's why they said, wait a minute, they can do math. If they were to get a percentage of that 150 billion that's illegal, you think a lot more can buy mansions, Big C, if we think about it? But I mean, a seedy side of what the Supreme Court did, and of course with Vegas winning, people are going to say, look, there's no problems. And if they win the Stanley Cup, I think it'd be a great thing, obviously. But with the sports betting, and they're allowing people, even on the college level, to be touched. Anyone can be touched. The sad part is there's also some bad people in the gambling business and in the betting world. It's not all bright lights and TV monitors all over the place when you go into Vegas. There's some good old boys that come looking for you if you don't have the money that you lost. You may not have the $100,000, but you gotta, they got some collateral, and sometimes you don't want to give that collateral up. But that's the seedy side of it. I think the Supreme Court it's being done anyway, Big C, but now they open up the mud flaps for everybody to do it. I don't think that's a good thing, especially for young people who are going to be in over their heads, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, what they did was they opened the doors for the illegal gamblers. Honestly, and that's what they didn't look at, is that now these illegal gamblers, Charlton, can touch the athletes.
Yeah.
Before they didn't have to do that. But now that they can, because the money is clean.
Yeah.
And so they can go in and pay people off to do them favors. And that will be done. Not just the athletes, Charlton, officials.
Yep.
Now, what's the background on a college official, Charlton? Think about that.
Yeah.
Look at the number of college games that are played. What's the background check on these officials that are officiating these college games, Charlton?
Yeah.
Are they in debt? Do they owe somebody? I'm watching the game last night with Golden State and Houston.
Yeah, did Houston
show? I'm sorry. Contest. I don't know if it was a game. It was a contest.
I forgot. Did Houston play last night? I thought it was a scrimmage.
Well, they're still waiting on the fourth quarter.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There was a point in the game where this young rookie from Oregon went up and he was challenging James Harden.
Yes.
He raised up on him from the three-point line.
Yep.
Harden missed a shot, but they called a foul on the rookie.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was as close to him as I am to you, Charlton. Okay?
You're 3,000 miles away.
That's the vicinity they work together.
Yeah.
And the announcers tried to justify it. They said, well, maybe he caught him in the lower body. Then after the replay, they said, well, maybe if it was Kevin Durant, they wouldn't have called a foul.
Yeah.
They gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And there was so much doubt. And see, that's what I talk about.
Yeah.
When I say people can be touched.
Yep.
Everybody thinks it's just the players that can alter a game. But when you see some of these calls, missed calls, non-calls that officials make, that controls the game. There was a situation in the game where Draymond Green set a hard foul on Ariza.
Yeah.
Ariza goes down. He tries to hold him from hitting the floor.
Yeah.
Ariza gets up, thumps him in the chest. They call a double technical foul.
For being punched.
Now, this puts... you get punched and you get a technical foul called on you.
Yeah.
And they said, well, because it's Green, his history. History had nothing to do with the play.
No.
You call the play.
Yeah.
There's a technical foul and an ejection that should have went with Ariza.
Yep.
That's the play. But, this sets things up for down the line for betting.
It sure does.
Now you got a Green who has to be a little more cautious.
At 7, he'll miss a game.
This is what I mean. It doesn't have to be a player.
Nope.
The officials are the first people that can control the outcome of a game. So when you start looking at football games and you have 6 or 7 officials on the field, and there's always a flag that's thrown behind a play. So where's that flag come from?
After the play. After the play. Yeah.
You look at some of the fouls that we've seen called after the play.
Yeah.
In last night and other games, Charlton. You look at the strike zone in baseball. The worst thing that the Major League Baseball has is that box.
Yeah.
And they said, well, he was painting the black.
No,
he was painting nothing but brown dirt out there.
Yeah.
That's all he was painting.
Yeah.
So when we talk about players that can be touched,
yeah,
the NFL officials went on strike 2 years ago, didn't they?
Sure did.
Said they weren't making enough money. That they wanted to become full-time employees, not part-time employees.
Yeah.
So evidently these people are saying, I'm not making enough money from you.
Yep.
So I'm going to go to the highest bidder. That's the thing that's going to occur.
You know, and the fact that you bring that up, for any person that says, oh, no, people are above that. It's one thing when you have a few $1 million in the bank and you got enough money to live another 10 lifetimes. It may not even cross your mind that some good old boy that approaches an official on the college level making $50,000 a year, you know, we really need this team to get into this bowl game or to win this conference championship. There's $100,000 for you in this paper bag, but you got to do these things for us. What guy is such a Jesus doesn't ref football games? Last time I checked, because see, I mean, maybe down in the SEC you guys got guys named Jesus, but they call him Jesus. But who wouldn't do something for $100,000 tax-free money just for saying that a foul was not a foul, or that a holding call was really not a holding call? And I know you're holier than thou, and people go to church every day, and the pastor would probably show up and say, yeah, that was a foul on Harton last night, Big C. And again, you brought up that point, and I think Weber talked about it too, where when Green was trying to help Ariza from falling to the ground, which he didn't have to, he could let him fall. He was trying to stop the fall. And Ariza got up and pushed him, and they hit Green with a tee. And it was the announcers, sometimes they slip and they forget what they're supposed to say. They're supposed to just shut up and follow script. But they had a commentation on that, and that's real talk. But Big C, we know that Cleveland's playing tonight. Want to get your thoughts on Cleveland? I think we get out of this series in Cleveland tied up. They haven't lost at home when you look at this playoff run that they're having. And I think with Boston looking like they were a little bit disheveled. But again, I also know there's a Las Vegas angle. I think there's no reason whatsoever that the NBA doesn't want to see LeBron James tied up at home, because he's the marketing, he's the cash cow, he's the golden goose, he's that vibranium lion that the universe recognizes, and they need him in series, Big C. So your thought on some of the other players coming around and how that affects the point spread, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we just talked about it. The physicality of the game is that the officials were not making the calls. They were allowing Cleveland to be physical against Boston, putting that extra nudge in, Charlton. That was the only way that they could get them off kilter, off their game, is that they get physical with them.
Yes.
And the officials miss calls.
Yep.
And they make mystery calls.
Yep.
This is the thing that occurred in this game. Athletically, Boston is a much better team. They're not better than LeBron.
No.
But they're better than Cleveland. And when you sit there and look at matchups, if you look at Boston's first 8 players,
yeah,
they're better than Cleveland's first 8 players,
yeah,
except for 1. So we could say 7 plus 1.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's how you got to look at that scenario. So when you're going out there and you're looking at face value, you're looking at a team in Boston that is a better basketball team.
Yeah.
Cleveland's at home. But I don't know if home court advantage is really an advantage for Cleveland, because they have lost at home. The thing that Boston can do, Charlton, is play their basketball. And if they do that, Cleveland's going to be in trouble tonight. If they just get in their minds after this first game, okay, we can't count on the officials. We have to count on each other. And even the fans that will watch the game tonight, Charlton, will see that.
Yeah.
The officials will not be on Boston's side. Yes, it behooves the NBA to have this series go back to Boston Tide.
Yeah.
And have the home teams win all the games, Charlton. But I don't know if Boston wants to buy into that. Because if Boston wants to win this series, Charlton, they have to win tonight. They can't wait to go back home to go up a game. They got to go back home up 2 games, Charlton.
Well, I tell you what, it's going to be awfully tough to unseat LeBron James in his own house. Big C, I want to turn to the land of vibranium, and I look at Golden State, the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry went for, I think, 35 last night, had a horrible first half in the game shooting threes, but he had a great first half in the game recognizing that his shot was not falling. and then he started driving the basket. He even had some Shaq to the Fool moves that he put on Harden, Big C, a couple of other them good old boys. He is really a magician. He reminds me of Curly Neal with the basketball, but Curly Neal couldn't shoot threes like Steph Curry. I want to get your thoughts on, no one's talking about the ankle anymore. No one's talking about the 2 for 13 from threes with the best prolific shooter in the history of the universe in Steph Curry. So no one had that excuse anymore. Now it's about shooters keep shooting, and I think they asked Charles Barkley at one of the halftime commentaries, do you stop Curry from shooting? How do you get him back on track? He said, no, you don't stop him. He'll shoot his way out of it. That's what shooters do. They don't get better by not shooting. They get better by taking a break and going to the basket, but don't just assist. Your thoughts on Steph Curry and his meteoric second half, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's just like in baseball when people are in a hitter's slump. They say, what's going to get him out of slump? He's going to keep having at-bats. Okay, he's going to keep swinging.
Yeah.
We saw that with Giancarlo Stanton with the Yankees, and everyone was talking about him when he was hitting under 200.
Yeah.
But he was still hitting periodic home runs. Now he has his batting average on the rise. He's close to 250s, double-digit home runs. No one is saying what's wrong with Giancarlo now.
No.
Same thing with Steph. Everyone said, well, is he tired? Is he hurt?
Yeah.
What happened with Steph Curry, Charlton, in the first couple of games is that Houston got real physical on him.
Yeah.
That's what they did. He got himself caught up in the mix. They were putting bodies on him. He wasn't getting the calls. So emotionally, he wasn't there mostly because he was feeling let down by the officials.
Right.
So he realized he needed to step out, take the ball into his hand, get out of the mix.
Yeah.
And that's what he did, Charlton. He said, clear out, let me go one-on-one.
Yes.
This is what they were doing to me, getting physical one-on-one with me.
Yes.
I will show you what physicality is from a quickness perspective.
Yes.
And that's what he did. He broke down James Harden. I mean, there's one move. James Harden is still looking for him. It's like, I knew he was here, but, I'm confused right now.
Yeah. James Harden said, I'm the MVP?
Curry,
go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He was allowed to get his shot off.
Yeah.
Once he got his shot off, and you start fearing him shooting from the outside, Charlton,
yes,
it opened up the lane.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he was driving to the basket. He had no fear about him last night.
Yeah.
And there was one point when he went to the basket, Charlton, and he jumped up in front of the camera, and he said something about this was his house, And I know his mother sent him a tweet on that middle word that he used that I can't use on the airwaves.
Yeah.
But I know it had mother in there somewhere, and that's why she sent him a tweet.
I think he said this is Mother's Day. This is for Mother's Day is what he said,
yeah, this is my mother's house. And so, but he laid down the gauntlet last night.
Yeah.
Is that you guys got physical?
Yeah.
We accepted that.
Yeah.
But now we're going to show you how to play basketball.
Yeah.
And they just ran him in the ground, Charles.
Yeah. I thought that was incredible. The funny story I want to bring up, you see how Steph Curry, he even had an interview. And I know there's some players in the NBA who's actually sued their parents, and we still canonize them as saints. You can Google who they are. But he showed such reverence. What kind of person would sue his own mother? I mean, anyway, Google it. But when you look at the reverence he has for his mother, as a grown man, multimillionaire, he didn't have as much reverence for his dad because he sat in his dad's chair when he eating that popcorn in his dad's chair. His dad said, get one MVP and got an attitude. I thought that was a funny commercial. But he has such reverence for his mother because his mother does something with kids, and obviously, that's just part of being emotional. You're going to have things come out of your mouth. But I love the respect that he shows for his mother, and a lot of black men do that. I'm not saying all men don't, but especially black men have it, except for the ones who sue their parents. You can Google who they are. But I just appreciate what the game was last night. I do want to swing you to another thought, though. How does a team that set a franchise record for wins, that became the number one seed in the Western Conference and the NBA, how do they lose by 41 points, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's the largest loss of a number one seed in NBA playoff history, as well as the largest loss for a team that has won 65 games.
Yeah.
The thing is that I don't know if they're confident against Golden State. And we saw that in game one in Houston.
Yeah.
When Golden State came out and took charge. And when Golden State puts that third quarter run on you,
yeah,
and you can see the looks on their face like, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Because they were intimidated even in going to the basket. You think about this, Charlton.
Yeah.
You missed 12 layups.
Yeah.
We talked about Cleveland in their first game versus Boston missing 14 threes.
Yes.
You missed 12 layups. Let me do the math on that one, too. That's 24 points.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
24 points that they left on the court. You can understand missing jump shots.
Yeah.
But we're talking about at the rim
that
you cannot finish. That makes a different ball game, Charlton.
Yeah.
But they were so intimidated and pressing, trying to keep up with the Warriors, Charlton.
Yes.
Is that they just were not relaxed in going to the rim.
Yeah. Maybe you need to send some of that shine out there, Big C, because they look like they were playing on shine, especially, you ever kiss a girl, Big C? You know how you get that electricity that runs through your body? Or maybe I won't put it that way. You ever eat that fresh pig when it's
I thought that was a taser.
Okay.
My electricity going through the body. I thought I was getting tased.
But it's like when you do it once, you want another one, and that's what Steph Curry was like last night when he started hitting threes. So no matter what happened, my friend told me it's going to be a 6-game series. I still want to see good basketball. But to me, when you get beat by 41, emotionally, it's hard to come back from anything like that. I really appreciate the way athletes play when they're in the zone, and I saw him in the zone last night. Durant had a great game. Iguodala had a great game. Has a little bit, I guess, a question about his knee. I think he'll come back and play, of course. And for Houston, whether they do it or not, they're better when they get Capella the ball in the paint and let him either dunk or kick it out. There are times when no one can handle him. But they forgot that, and they kept going back to this guy that wants to be the MVP, so he'd hold the ball until about 8 seconds and then either dribble to somebody or shoot it. But they weren't finding Capella. Remember how the Lakers won? They found Kareem because he was the closest guy to the basket. And if he wasn't able to score, then he would kick it out. Houston still hasn't learned that yet, Big C. I want to close out with one thing. I know one of your favorite groups was LTD back in the day. Stand Up LTD and Jeffrey Osborne, when you woo 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 and you justify my love. We talked about the Preakness and Justify, the 143rd running of the Preakness. He won again, and will the Triple Crown at Belmont be next? But what I thought was near and dear to your heart, Big C, there was so much mud around that racetrack up in Baltimore, Big C. I was wondering, did you feel at home watching this horse race, Big C, with all that mud out there in the tracks, Big C, you thought?
Well, Charlton, I could have taken the Escalade out there and no one would have noticed.
That four-wheel drive.
We missed half of the race from the fog and the rain that was going on, Charlton. And like I said, also, it put out my pit fire. So when they were at an after-race barbecue. And I'm still a little upset about that. Like I said, I think it was fake rain because there was too much of it. But, when you look at where Justify was, Charlton, this reminds me of just a couple short years ago, a horse named California Chrome. That had won the first 2 legs of the Triple Crown. But when you get to Pimlico, Charlton, to the Belmont Stakes, is that you bring in all these fresh horses, which I feel is unfair. And you think about it, 1.5 miles, this is not a normal distance for horses or anybody else.
No.
And then all of a sudden, you bring in these fresh horses, and you get out there in that last quarter mile. That is that extra distance that they're not used to running. And that's where they have a tendency to fade. We saw that with California Chrome. Finishing in 3rd. And so I wonder about that with Justify, because this was a very difficult race in this last race, winning by 3/4 of a length, Charlton. Now you bring in a fresh horse who has not run, and I guarantee you there'll be at least 5 of them in the final race that have not run. So they got those legs versus a horse that may not have that kick, Charlton, in that final race. And I think that's an unjust that thoroughbred racing does, Charlton, that you should have had to compete at least in one of the first 2 races to run in the final race, Charlton, of the Triple Crown. And it's been a disadvantage for many horses over the years that have won the first two legs.
Well, I tell you what, it was a great theater. There was so much excitement over the weekend from the royal wedding. We had NBA basketball, the playoffs, NHL hockey doing it, baseball going strong, WNBA started on Friday. A lot of good things happening in the world of the sports universe. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bandini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you've got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm looking at Game 6 of the Eastern Finals in the NHL tonight. You got to think about the Washington Capitals, who got off to a 2-zip start versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're down 3-2.
Yeah.
One game away from elimination, Charlton. Do they have enough to stay alive and force a Game 7 or being swept in 4?
Well, I tell you what, we will find out in the land of vibranium, and you can find out too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know anybody, man or woman, going through that garbage, please call 911. No man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage all on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope you have a super fantastic day.